Maybe it's 2 a.m. and your body is exhausted, but your mind won't turn off. Maybe it's replaying a scenario you've already watched a dozen times. Your brain is making sure you haven't missed something, or maybe there's still a problem you haven't solved yet. Maybe you've researched something for 3 hours before making a decision that took you 30 seconds to make. Maybe you have a plan in place to get out of a social situation, just in case. Or maybe you're the person who has scheduled 4 things for the next weekend, so you wouldn't have to feel or face the thing that's lying underneath. Underneath all that planning, all that preparing, all that motion, there is a single question, which is, am I safe? If you're a 5, a 6, or a 7 on the Enneagram, that question has quietly been influencing how you live your life. The mind is just a strategy that you've been using to answer it. So today, we are going to look at what's lying underneath. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Seasons of Joy podcast. I'm Jill Pack, and this is episode number 205, entitled The Mind That Won't Rest. If you've been with me for the last few weeks, you know that we've been going through the Enneagram Triads together. Episode number 202 gave us the overview of all 3 triads. It's a zoomed out view. Episode number 203, we went into the gut triad, which includes 8s, 9s, and 1s, and the way anger moves through each one of those types. And in episode number 204, we came to the heart triad, which includes 2s, 3s, and 4s, and the quiet shame underneath all that giving, achieving, and longing. Today, we've come to the final episode in the series, the head triad, which includes types 5, 6, and 7. Remember, I am a learner, not an expert of the Enneagram. This is not meant to be comprehensive. It's just an invitation to understanding yourself better, or to understanding the people you love better, and an invitation to learn more if it resonates with you. And as always, you don't need to know your type for this episode to be useful. You have a mind, and you know what it's like to lie awake worrying at night. You know what it's like to make a plan and then a backup plan. You know what it's like to want to stay in motion so you don't have to feel the thing that's been waiting underneath. So let's go there together. The thread that links 5s, 6s, and 7s is fear. It isn't always this big, dramatic, trembling kind of fear. More often than not, it's this low hum underneath everything. There's this quiet vigilance, a sense that the world is uncertain and unpredictable, and the mind is the tool that's going to get you through it. Each type manages that fear differently. 5s retreat from it. They withdraw, gather information, conserve energy, stockpile knowledge. Because if you understand enough, if you have enough, you won't be overwhelmed. And their strategy is pulling inward. 6s are consumed by it. Fear is closer to the surface for them than any other type in this triad. They scan constantly for the threat before it arrives. They test loyalty before committing to anything. And they either find someone or something to trust completely, or they refuse to trust anything at all. Their strategy is vigilance. 7s outrun it. They stay in motion. They fill the calendar. They keep their options open. They reframe everything into possibility. Because as long as something good is coming, the pain underneath never catches up. Their strategy is forward momentum. 3 types, 1 core question. Am I safe? Do I have enough? Can I trust what's coming? And one more thing before we walk through each of these types. I have mentioned before that Enneagram experts connect each type to one of the 7 deadly sins. And again, the deadly sin language isn't about judging yourself or judging other people. It's a map. The specific shape that fear, in this case, takes when it isn't met. It's the place where grace meets us each individually and specifically. So let's meet the 3 types. Type 5, the investigator. The 5 is the person who has read everything on the subject before the conversation even starts. Their core wound is that the world is intrusive and overwhelming, and they don't have enough. Whether it's enough energy, enough resources, enough capacity to handle it. Somewhere along the way, often at a very young age, the 5 learned that the world asked more of them than they felt like they were equipped to give. People, and demands were just too much, and emotions, whether it was theirs or other people's, were just too much. So they did what any other person would probably do. They pulled back and they retreated to the one place that felt safe, their own mind. If they understood enough, if they had enough knowledge, enough time alone to process, then they could handle what came. For the 5, fear shows up as depletion. They aren't as afraid of danger as they are afraid of having nothing left. So they guard and protect their time, their energy, their attention, their inner world, and sometimes even their love. Their deadly sin is avarice, and it isn't greed for money or things. It's a greed for resources. The 5 holds on to themselves with both hands, but it's not from a place of selfishness, but it's out of this genuine belief that there isn't enough to share and still have enough left for themselves. So what does this look like in midlife? It looks like the person who reads everything before making a decision, who needs time alone to process what happened in a conversation that ended an hour ago, or whose family sometimes feels like they can't quite reach them, and it's not because they don't love them, but because they've disappeared into their own inner world and they don't know how to get in there. It looks like the person who prepared intellectually for every season of life, but sometimes doesn't know what they're feeling in their own body. They can tell you everything about a topic and very little about themselves. It looks like the person who gives so carefully in such measured portions that the people who love them most feel like they're always waiting at the edge of something they won't quite let them into. The gift of the 5, however, is real and quietly beautiful. They have depth and originality. They have a capacity to focus with a concentration that most of us can only envy. 5s are the ones who become genuinely expert in what they love. They think before they speak. They observe before they act. Their insights are earned, not just performed. They bring perspective and precision and clarity into spaces that need it. The world is made more curious and more honest by 5s in it. But there is a cost, and it is isolation. The hoarding of self and the slow emotional distance that builds when 5s keep pulling back to protect their reserves. The people who love a 5 sometimes feel like they're on the other side of a window. They can see in, but they can't quite get all the way inside. And the 5, in their need to conserve, sometimes waits too long to show up, too long to share, to connect, and to let themselves truly be known. So growth for the 5 comes through re-entering the body and the room, through trusting that there is enough. Then they can begin to understand that giving doesn't empty them, but actually replenishes them. The radical act for a 5 is choosing presence over preparation. So what does transformation for a 5 look like? What I believe becomes possible for a 5 is this. When you can allow your feelings to arise naturally and experience them in the present moment and then let them go instead of saving them for later when you're alone. Or when you can catch yourself slipping into scarcity mentally, hoarding affection, privacy, knowledge, time, and energy, and choose to loosen the grip. When something moves the people around you and you let it move you too, right there in the moment, instead of tucking it away to process in private. When you can share more of your life with others and trust that they won't misuse what you've given them. When you show up before you have all the answers, because you've learned that not knowing is not the same as failing. You won't look foolish. You'll look human. When you can call a friend for no reason at all other than to be in a room together, to spend time together, and you let that be enough. And when you can find a practice that gets you back into your body, like taking a walk, yoga, anything, and you can start to close that gap between your head and the rest of you. And when you feel unsure of yourself and you jump into the conversation anyway, instead of waiting until it's safe. So in an earlier episode, I shared the SNAP method developed by Cron and Stabile in their book, The Road Back to You. SNAP stands for Stop, Notice, Ask, and Pivot. And the whole point of understanding more about ourselves is to notice the patterns and those autopilot reactions that don't help us live or love the way we want to. And as we get better at living more intentionally, we relate to the people in our lives with more wisdom and more love. We didn't apply it in the last episode, but I wanted to revisit it and bring it back today. So let's apply it to each type today. So let's say you're a type 5 and you're in this moment and you're feeling a pull to withdraw from the conversation, the emotion, the room. What does snap look like there? Well, stop. Slow down before you disappear and notice that pull to retreat before you've already gone. And then notice what's happening in your body. Where are you holding tension in your body? What are you feeling beneath the urge to pull back? And then ask, what am I believing right now? How does it make me feel? Is it true? For the 5, the belief is often this: I don't have enough to give this. And then ask, is that true right now in this moment? And then the pivot is choosing one small act of presence. Stay in the conversation 1 minute longer. Say the thing you were going to save for later. Let someone in just a little bit. Next, the type 6, which is the loyalist. The 6 is the most loyal person in the room and sometimes the most suspicious. Not because they're difficult, but because trust is the thing they have wanted so badly most of their entire life and the thing that has been hardest to find. Their core wound is this: the world is unpredictable and unsafe, and they cannot trust their own judgment to protect themselves. And somewhere along the way, the 6 learned that the ground could shift without warning, that people didn't always do what they said they would do, that authority could let you down, that the things you counted on could disappear. So they developed a strategy to stay alert and anticipate. Test loyalty before committing to it. Scan for the threat before it arrives. And if they can see it coming, it can't blindside them. If they can find someone trustworthy enough, a person, a structure, a faith, and hold on tightly, they will be safe. So for the 6, fear is the place they feel at home. It's closer to the surface than for any other type in this triad, but there is a complexity to it because 6s respond to fear in 2 different directions. Some 6s become phobic. They move towards safety. They defer to authority. They seek someone trustworthy to follow. Other 6s become counterphobic. They move toward the thing they fear. They become bold. They challenge authority, almost look for a fight, because facing the threat feels safer than waiting for it. So you may see yourself in both. A lot of 6s do. Their deadly sin is fear itself. It is the one type in the Enneagram whose passion is the emotion that defines the triad, and it is a self-perpetuating cycle. The scanning creates more anxiety, the anxiety creates more scanning, and around it goes. They are not broken. It's just a nervous system that never fully learned that it was allowed to rest. So what does it look like in midlife? It looks like the person who can't quite receive a compliment without wondering what comes next. The person who loves their people fiercely and strongly and quietly, but still waits for the moment that they'll let them down. Not because they're cynical, but because their nervous system has been keeping watch for so long it doesn't know how to stop. It looks like the person who has a plan B and a plan C before plan A has even started. They can carry a low hum of yes, but what if underneath almost everything. They are genuinely brave and are still somehow surprised when things go well. It looks like the person who is deeply devoted to the people and institutions they've chosen to trust, and who can turn on them with a startling speed if that trust feels threatened in any way. Because for a 6, broken trust isn't just disappointing, it's the thing that they have been bracing for all along. But the gift of the 6 is big and enormous. They are responsible and have great foresight. They have a loyalty that doesn't quit when things get hard. 5s think before they act. 6s think ahead, so the act doesn't have to be reactive. They thought of the problem first. And because of that, the problem didn't happen. They are the faithful friend who shows up when it costs something to show up. And communities are safer and more honest because 6s are in them. But the cost is chronic anxiety and second guessing. They have difficulty trusting their own intuition, even when it's right. Their relationships are often shadowed by the waiting for it to all go wrong. And sometimes there is the painful irony of a self-fulfilling prophecy, pushing away the very trust that they've been longing for all along by holding on too hard. So growth for the 6 comes in learning to trust the still small voice, including their own. The invitation is not to stop being alert, but to learn the difference between a real threat and the story the nervous system has been rehearsing since childhood, and to discover slowly that the ground beneath them is more solid than they thought. So transformation for a 6. Here's what I believe becomes possible for the 6. When you can slow your mind down enough to hear yourself think, through prayer, through stillness, through something that quiets the noise. When you can notice whether you're blindly following or reflexively rebelling, and you choose the more conscious middle way instead. Or when you keep a record in a journal, even a mental note, of the times your judgment was right and the times things did fall apart and you survived anyway. Either way, you've shown yourself that you are still here. Or when you can receive a compliment without immediately deflecting it or checking for what's behind it. Or when you're playing devil's advocate, which you do well, and you also make room for what's right about the plan, not just what could go wrong. And when you start to notice how much you're feeding the anxiety through news cycles, through worst case scenario books and films, and you begin to choose differently. When doubt and suspicion arise in a relationship, and you can ask yourself honestly, is this about them or is this the pattern? Or when you learn to tell the difference between a real threat and a patterned anxiety, and you stop giving them the same weight. And when you give as much airtime to the possibility that things will work out as you give the possibility that they won't. When you lean into faith instead of waiting for courage, because you've learned that faith is the gift and you're allowed to ask for it. So what's snap for the 6? Say you're in a moment where the anxiety is beginning to ramp up. The worst case scenario starts running and the doubt is moving in. Stop. Step out of the spiral before it gets speed. Maybe 3 breaths. You are allowed to pause. And then notice, is this a real threat or is this a patterned anxiety looking for somewhere to go? Your body knows the difference, even if your mind doesn't yet. And ask, what do I actually know to be true right now? Not what could be true, what is true. For 6s, the belief underneath is often, I can't trust this. And so you want to ask whether that's grounded in fact or in fear. Then the pivot looks like practicing trust in something small and concrete. Maybe it's 1 breath or 1 true thing. Say the prayer, come back to what you know. And finally, type 7, the enthusiast. The 7 is the most fun person in the room. They are also often the most privately exhausted. Their core wound is this: pain is inevitable and they are not equipped to handle it. So they will fill their life with enough good things that the pain never gets room. Somewhere early on, the 7 discovered that moving fast was a very effective way to stay ahead of whatever was chasing them. Anticipation became their survival skill. If something good is always coming, then there is no time to sit with the hard thing. And if you keep adding options, keep adding plans, keep adding the next adventure, then that feeling that's been waiting underneath never quite catches up. Their strategy in life becomes stay in motion and keep the options open. Their specific fear is being trapped, whether it's trapped in pain, in limitation, or in an ordinary life that doesn't measure up to what they imagined. So they reframe everything into possibility, because a life full of good things is a life that can't be touched by the bad ones. They keep the exit ramp available just in case. And their deadly sin is gluttony, not for food, but for experience, stimulation, and options. The 7 doesn't want more things as much as they want more possibilities. Gluttony for the 7 is the collecting of what's next. So many next things that the present one never gets the full weight of attention it deserves. So what does this look like in midlife? It looks like the person who is genuinely excited about 17 things and hasn't finished any of them. They pivot from grief to planning so fast that people can't always follow. They're always the first to find the silver lining, but can also use that silver lining to avoid facing the whole picture, the reality. It looks like the person who can't quite sit still, even when sitting still is what the moment needs. They can laugh easily, but sometimes in the quiet that they rarely allow, they might wonder, what have they been running from? It looks like the person whose faith is real and joyful and can sometimes be a little surface. Because going deep means going down, and going down means feeling the thing that they've been running from since they were small. But the gift of the 7 is life-giving. They bring joy and generosity and possibilities and genuine delight. The 7 sees what could be and makes the people around them believe it too. They bring lightness into heavy rooms. They remind us that life is supposed to be good. They are playful and creative and magnetic. In a world that can feel really heavy, the 7 is a true gift. But the cost is bypassed depth and postponed pain. The people who love a 7 sometimes feel like they're always chasing them to the next thing, always slightly breathless, trying to keep up, never quite sure if the 7 is really here or already planning the next escape. And the 7, when they're alone, in that rare quiet that they didn't feel, can feel the strange ache of a life too full to be present in the moment. So growth for a 7 is the willingness to be still long enough for the thing underneath to surface, and to find that they are, in fact, equipped to handle it, that the pain that they've been outrunning is survivable, and that the joy they've been chasing has been here all along in the places that they keep leaving. This year, my word has been allowing, and I think the 7 is maybe the type that needs that word the most. Not because they don't experience joy, but because they chase it instead of allowing it. Allowing looks like staying, letting the hard thing be hard without adding something good on top, trusting that the depth that you've been longing for is actually already here. In the ordinary moment, you keep leaving to find something better. So transformation for a 7. Here's what I believe becomes possible for the 7. When you can step off the treadmill, when you feel that pull of more and you decide that what you already have is enough. When your mind wants to jump to the next thing and you practice staying, even briefly, with the one you're in. When you can build solitude in your life on purpose, not productivity, just quiet, just you. When a hard feeling surfaces and you stay with it instead of running, and then you give yourself credit for it because that is growing. And when you catch yourself already living in the next weekend and you come back to right now because you've learned that the present is where everything real is happening. And when a friend is hurting and you don't fix it, you don't reframe it, you don't reach for the silver lining before they're ready, you just stay and your presence becomes the gift. And when you open the journal and answer the questions you've been avoiding, what does my life mean? What am I running from? Where is the depth I've been longing for? And you don't abandon it until you're done. And when you can commit to something long enough to let it become something, because you've learned that not every open door needs to be walked through. So snap for a 7. Let's say you're in a moment where something uncomfortable surfaces, whether it's grief, boredom, limitation, pain, and the reflex is to move. You want to stop. Don't schedule, don't pivot, don't reframe yet. Let the moment be what it actually is. And then notice, what am I running from right now? Where is it in my body? What would I feel if I stayed? And then ask, what am I believing right now? For the 7, the belief is almost always some version of, I can't handle this, or I need to find something better than this. And then ask, is that even true? And pivot, choose presence. Let the feeling be real without making it a project. You are more capable of this than you think, and staying is the most courageous thing a 7 can do. So let's bring this all together. 3 types, 3 different rooms in the same house. One ache underneath all of it. Am I safe? Over the last 4 weeks, we've been inside all 3 triads. The body asked, how do I stay myself? The heart asked, am I love? And the head asks, am I safe? These are not just Enneagram questions. These are the questions of being human. Every one of us has a body, a heart, and a mind, and every one of us has been asking these 3 questions in our own way since we were small. The body that learned to be tough, the heart that learned to be useful, and the mind that learned to be vigilant. They were all trying to answer the same thing. They were all trying to find their way to safety, to love, to being enough. But the Savior has taught us to fear not. He reminds us over and over again that He is with us and that we belong to Him. The body is held, the heart is known, and the mind is not alone. The 6s aren't wrong that the world is uncertain. The 5s aren't wrong that resources are limited. And the 7s aren't wrong that pain is real. But underneath all of that, underneath the vigilance and the withdrawing and the motion, there is a foundation that doesn't move. And the lifelong work is learning to trust it. All three triads have something they've been trying to force. The gut forces autonomy. The heart forces love. The head forces safety. And one invitation of this whole series is to allow instead of force. Allow the body to speak, to have a voice. Allow love to be there, and allow the mind to rest. That's the work. So before I let you go, 3 questions to sit with this week. Which of the 3, the 5, the 6, or the 7, sounds most like you? And what did it feel like to recognize that in yourself? And where does your fear show up first? Is it in your body, in your relationships, in your planning? And what would it look like this week to let your mind rest, even for 30 seconds? You don't have to answer these questions today. I want you to just sit with them for now. Before I let you go, here's one sentence for each of you. For the 5, you don't have to understand it all before you show up. You already have enough. For the 6, your instincts are worth trusting, and so is the one who made you. For the 7, what you've been looking for isn't in the next thing. It's already here. It's been here the whole time. So this is the last episode of the Enneagram series. I have loved every minute of making it. It has deepened my belief that we are all wired divinely different, and grace meets us there and moves us towards growth. If you've noticed yourself in more than one type across this series, that is good. You are supposed to. You're not just one thing. We are all complex, layered, made in the image of God human beings who carry a little bit of all of it. The point was never to put yourself in a box. The point was to understand yourself more kindly and to offer the same kindness to the people you love. Thank you for being here for all of it. And if you know someone who would love learning more about the Enneagram, please share this series with them. If you're ready for a next step, a practical day-by-day practice to start applying what you've been learning here on the podcast, my free 30-day Conflict to Connection challenge is waiting for you in the show notes. 1 short email a day, 1 small practice, 30 days of real movement from disconnection to connection. I'd love to walk through it with you. So take a breath, my friend. Let your mind know it's allowed to rest for a minute. And I will see you next week.